Good evening and welcome everyone to this community conversation which Richmond Council are running, and as you will know, that the theme of this evening's conversation is community safety. My name is the Reverend Stephen Stavru. I'm the Vicar of St Michael and All Angels Church in Barnes, and as on the other community conversations, I've been chosen as an independent local person, but with obviously an interest and care for the local community. So I'm very pleased to welcome you to this event and to host this evening. Just a few notices. So going to introduce, we have ward councillors with us this evening. So the various people who will be responding to your questions later on. So we have 3 wards represented, the Barnes ward, and we have Councillor Aphra Brandreth, Councillor Paul Hodgins, and Councillor Rita Palmer. So welcome to councillors from the Barnes ward. Then from East Sheen ward, we have Councillor Julia Cambridge, Councillor Seamus Joyce, I couldn't remember if we had it, and we've got Councillor Brian Marcel as well. That's from East Sheen. And then from Mortlake, about Mortlake and Barnes Common, Councillor Alice Bridges-Westcott and Councillor Gemma Curran. So those are the councillors from all 3 wards.
What?
I think, Father Stephen, I think Councillor Paul Avon is here. Yes.
Welcome, Councillor Paul Avon. Apologies. I didn't see that.
You're forgiven.
Thank you very much.
Only just though.
Welcome. We also have the community engagement team officers, Lynette Lawson-Tyers, who will be writing up notes and actions after the events. I should have said at the beginning that this is recorded, I think as most of you will already know, and is published on the council website later on. Others also attending this evening, we have police representatives, PS Chris Murphie and Inspector Rebecca Robinson. Welcome to both of you. Police liaison group, we have Anne Johnston, Keith Mahony, if I pronounced that correctly, and Wendy Carl Pope. And then also Peter Burrows from the Safer Neighbourhood Board. I think is that everybody I needed to cover who will be answering questions this evening. Thank you and welcome. So I'll give an outline of this evening. So in a few moments' time, we'll move to a very short update. I've been told to remind the ward councillors to keep it short from each ward. Then we will have, again, short introductions from the Safer Neighbourhood Board and the Police Liaison Group. And then a very short update from the local police about key news in the local area. However, most of the evening will be taken up with your questions. I will just remind or say a few words about how we will do that. So when you have 4 questions, you'll be asked to write in the chat that you have a question, and rather than writing the whole question out, please would you write question and then the topic. So for example, you would write question graffiti, and I just give that as an example. So that when later on we come to the questions, I will turn to somebody. Mr. Smith, I can see that you have a question about graffiti. And then later on, when we have a conversation about that, I'll invite people to raise their virtual hand. And then we can go to others who have questions on a similar topic. As the chair, it will be my job to slightly judge how much time we spend on each topic from seeing in the chat how many various topics we've got and how many questions there are. So please don't be offended if I have to move on at any point to a different topic. You've also all received the etiquette guide. We keep it friendly, and it's also expressly not political. And also remember that the focus this evening is on community safety. So safety issues within the area or things that have an impact on the area. Right, I'll just check if I've said everything I need to say in the introduction. I'll just finish the introduction by saying that after the event, all of you who are attending this evening will be emailed the email addresses of the local representatives and any web links that have been discussed in the meeting. So you don't need to write them down. You'll get a communication about that. So without further ado, we now move to our first agenda item, which is ward councillor update. So first of all, from the Barnes ward, I think we're hearing from Councillor Paul Hodgins. Is that correct?
That's correct. Thank you for that, Stephen. First of all, let me apologize. It's a very strange time, and I'm calling you from very strange surroundings, as you can probably see. If you're not able to be at home, it's not so easy to find good locations to speak. So, but hopefully you can see me okay. I've got the instruction to be short, so let me just say, in terms of the major things happening in Barnes, other than COVID, of course, the major thing that everybody's aware of is Hammersmith Bridge, and people hopefully are aware about the task force that is, I hope, going to break the deadlock on activity going forward. We are being updated about things that are happening. The task force is meeting every week. I was hoping that there would be much faster progress, but the reality is that the task force is having to look at quite detailed plans and generating plans. And unfortunately, those plans just haven't been there until this time. For all the talk of funding, there's a lot of work to be done. So we as councillors are really pushing quite hard on the priority of the temporary crossing and wanting to see activity on that. And as people know, there is incredible activity being done by residents, pushing ahead plans for the ferry, which looks positive, although that is looking to start in the new year. But that is being made possible by the work of residents. There were measures announced today to improve the pathways and the safety and communication and transport between Hammersmith Bridge and Barnes Bridge, but also Putney Bridge. So including guards and work on the paths along the towpath, and hopefully some other things to make that journey better, especially as we get into the darkness. And we will keep pushing on that and working alongside, as I say, all of the great work being done by residents, which have really made the powers that be know how important this is and how much it's impacting everyone's lives. And I'm sure we'll come back to that in the questions. In terms of other things that are happening in the ward, I'd encourage everybody to go and not forget about the Barnes High Street consultation and to feed back into that. We as councillors are currently reviewing proposals for a local ward fund. Every ward has a pool of £10,000, which we can allocate to projects, typically one-time improvement projects, and we're looking at that now. If anyone has ideas, then please forward those through. And I think the last thing I'll say right now is that some of you may have seen news about the negotiations going on between government and TfL, and the introduction of measures, including one that I think alarmed us all about the congestion zone potentially coming out to the south in the North Circular. And I am assured that that is not a proposal and not a government proposal. And we will be pushing back very hard on that. I think that was just that was a little game playing, but we're gonna make sure that that doesn't happen. And with that, I'm sure we'll come back to other issues and we'll move on.
Thank you, Councillor Hodgins. So moving on to East Sheen, I think we're going to hear from Councillor Julia Cambridge and Councillor Brian Marcel. Councillor Cambridge, do you want to say something first?
Thank you, Stephen, and good evening, everybody. I've got 6 things, but I'm going to run through them really, really quickly because I know you want to hear from everyone, and so do I. So starting off, to do with business in East Sheen, which is important, and myself and in fact the other councillors too were very involved with the Shop Local initiative. So what we've been doing is we've been going round. We've had some really, really heartbreaking losses in East Sheen, actually. We've lost Barclays Bank, which has huge significance, particularly on less able residents. We've had Johnson Shoes, we've had Whistles, etc. So we've been around, we've spoken to the business owners, to the people that work in the shops, and we're really trying to press home, along with the council, the Shop Local initiative. So that's taken up a reasonable amount of time, but it's important, and I'm sure Mortlake and Barnes would agree with this, to support our local businesses, and I know our councillors have been doing that. Another quick one. So TfL started this street scene initiative, and in East Sheen we've closed off Milestone Green, we've pedestrianised it and sort of brought in a cafe culture, and again that was in partnership with the council, pressure from the councillors and also from local businesses. And the next few things I'd just like to finish with are a little bit of crime and community safety, because I think we had some quite special issues in the height of lockdown. I mean, obviously we're still in an element of lockdown. I wanted to echo what Councillor Hodges was saying and really pat the back of the council and say thank you so much for this initiative to do with park guard marshals. Now this was announced today, and although this isn't directly Sheen, we do have families whose school children can't use Hammersmith Bridge anymore, and they need those well-lit towpaths. So from the 26th of October, during the working week, as it were, there will be park guard marshal patrols. And there will also be some low ground sort of spotlights, let's say, which won't disturb the bats and the environmental concerns that some people have. But going back to East Sheen, we had, and I'm sure Sergeant Murphy will know what I'm talking about, we did have a problem with aggressive beggars. Particularly a few well-known individuals. They spread out into Barnes. They were on Barnes Pond Common, etc. They were in Mortlake Common, and they were dealt with. They really were. And I know things were held up because of COVID, and they couldn't quite get to the courts at the time they were. But that was something which I personally worked with our local community safety at the council and the police representatives here in East Sheen to try and do something about. And probably a last thing to say was, as a consequence of COVID, we had a lot of fly tipping. I think people were at home, Townmead was closed, and so I was getting quite a lot of representations from people saying, outside of the charity shops on Upper Richmond Road, it was piled high with old clothes and a lot of rubbish, and it was so unfair. I mean, it was really an unholy mess. So that was something we got to work on. And that's it for now.
Thank you, Councillor Cambridge. We'll move on to Councillor Marcel. Just very quickly to all the residents here, just a reminder that as we go along at any point, just feel free to write in the chat question and then just the topic of your question, you know, road safety, graffiti, fly tipping rather than the whole question. It just makes it slightly easier for me to see things, but at any point, feel free to write in the chat. Councillor Marcel, just briefly, if you would like to say something.
Yes, I would. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this community conversation. So, following on from Councillor Cambridge, you've all seen the Milestone Green development, if you like. We've got artisan putting seats outside, but this has been a 6-year project with more to come, I'm pleased to say, provided TfL can find the money to develop that little site there. What I'm interested in from all the residents is we'd like to maybe put in some farmers market, maybe there or down at Sheen Lane Centre. I'd be very interested to hear anybody's views, whether you'd be interested in something like that, because with winter coming, I don't expect people to be sitting outside having coffee. So we could make better use of that site. Second very exciting development is we're making a lot of progress with a play area off Sheen Common, off the bowling site there in the wood, and the council's kindly given us £60,000 to develop that. We're going out to tender quite soon, and I think it's going to cost a lot more than 60,000. So we may well come to you for some funding to do that. So if you'd like to start saving money now, that would be really good news. We've done a lot of patrolling Sheen Lane near Mortlake Station to try and stop people with their engine idling. I think a lot of the signs there from the council have been a bit small. And anyway, people are using that as an excuse to keep their engines running. But we're having a blitz on that to stop this pollution. As some dog pooing hotspots, we've been trying to clean up generally. So lots of graffiti being removed as well to try and clean up the ward and make it gorgeous. And I just say one thing in case you've been looking forward to Remembrance Sunday. As you'll probably hear soon, everything's been cancelled. So it's a bit sad, but anybody who wants to lay a wreath can do so informally. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So moving on to the third and final ward represented, I think we're hearing from Councillor Bridges-Westcott and Councillor Curran have volunteered to give the summary. Councillor Bridges-Westcott.
Thank you very much. So for me, we now have a dedicated officer on Mortlake Crossing for anti-idling, and as I think Councillor Hodgins has mentioned, 4 park guard marshals to patrol the towpath, which I appreciate is a bit further up, but we've got that. I've also replaced an anti-idling sign on the Mortlake side of Mortlake Station, which had fallen down, as I appreciate sort of Councillor Marcel had just mentioned. Obviously we've got the brewery. I've made representations to the mayor. The mayor has obviously called it in, and he's also hosting a virtual representation hearing on the 26th of November at 1:30 p.m. and I believe that you can still feed in by emailing, and I think you can find that on the GLA website. I have been working with our MP Sarah Olney on things around particularly transport. So for the last 2 weekends, we've had no trains here, and obviously that's caused an increase in traffic. And I don't actually think it was particularly well signposted, to be honest. So we've written to South Western Railway to flag that and say that, you know, if you're going to do engineering works, you need to be making sure that you're making people, like letting people know within plenty of time. And on sort of anything transport related, we've also been working on, we've got a report coming out within the next sort of 4 to 6 weeks around tactile paving. Sadly, there was a death of a blind man in another borough, and it was in a station that had no tactile paving. Obviously Mortlake in particular has no tactile paving, and we'll be pushing to make sure that we get tactile paving. So that's all the transport stuff. I've also been making representations to our MP around the traffic issues and flagging that we can do things around asking him to write to TfL to sort the signalling out, to see if there's anything we can do with traffic signalling and to try and ease congestion. So I'm just looking down at my list and trying not to overrun. And yeah, I think I'll hand over to my colleague, Councillor Curran.
Thank you. Councillor Curran.
Thank you. Yes, mainly planning issues, and none more so than obviously the Mortlake Brewery. And we've been working with Mortlake Brewery Community Group, and Paul, Councillor Avon, and myself met with residents of both Chertsey Court Residents Association and also the Mortlake Brewery Community Group to find out how we can try and persuade the GLA's mayor to refuse the new application that has been called in and has been increased in density significantly in plans. And, you know, we're also looking at how, if this is approved, such as the home base in North Richmond ward, then how can we get the sort of Secretary of State to call it in from that point of view? Working closely with both representatives in the GLA and in the government on that. Traffic issues, Hammersmith Bridge, there has been a lot of traffic along Mortlake High Street, and also some sort of roads, particularly Alder Road, which leads down from North Walpole Way onto Mortlake High Street, has become somewhat of a rat run. We are waiting a decision in a bid to TfL to make that a low traffic neighbourhood, so it will minimise the amount of cars that pass down there and pass down there very quickly. Anyone familiar with that road knows it's much of a one way with traffic coming both ways. It gets quite dangerous. Chasing up rubbish collections from residents, so there's been quite a few miscollections, so just been working with both the committee, Environment Committee, and also the officers to chase those up. And then finally, the other applications that have been sort of prolific during lockdown have been mobile phone masts. Harder for me to object to those, because if anyone knows, I sit on the planning committee, so I have to remain impartial. But Paul has, Councillor Avon has been working actively to have those refused by the local planning officers, and he informs me that the second mast application has been defeated, for anyone who wishes to know that information. So we're sort of keeping our wits on us about those applications. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we move on, just to say to everyone that we asked the councillors to give, as they did, a general update from the wards. Obviously, tonight focuses on community safety, and I've been asked to mention that with regard to Hammersmith Bridge, safety questions relating to Hammersmith Bridge are part of this evening, but that the council will be imminently announcing a forum in which to discuss more generally issues of Hammersmith Bridge. So I'll just mention that now. Questions are coming in, so please do keep those coming. Before we go to questions, we're going to hear from a few more people. We're going to hear, first of all, from the Police Liaison Group, Keith Mahony and Wendy Curl Pope. Who would like to go first?
I could be chauvinistic and say ladies first, but it's a matter for you, really.
Keith, please, you've started. So do you...
Okay, I'll start. Okay, a brief run through from me then. Keith Mahony. I've been chair of the East Sheen PLG for about 4 years. And we meet quarterly as we're expected to, not of late obviously, but that's the normal sort of pattern. And we hold our meetings in the Baptist Church in Temple Sheen Road and upstairs in the Plough in Christchurch Road. And what I would like to say is that we're extremely grateful to both these places for hosting our meetings. Attendance at our meetings is what I would describe as fairly low. That's generally, unless there's a particular concern that people want to raise with police, such as a spate of crimes, or occasionally, thankfully, very occasionally, a serious crime occurring, such as a robbery, which thankfully we don't have too many of in East Sheen. But I think the strength of our police liaison group is the level of contact that we have with the local Safer Neighbourhood team. This is something I do fairly regularly if I want to make sure that they're aware of concerns about local crimes and crime patterns. and on occasions, perhaps a perceived lack of police activity dealing with an issue. Bit of a critical friend role, really. I've got an advantage. I'm an ex-police officer, and I've got a detailed understanding, I think, of police procedures, although slightly out of date. But I do appreciate, as I think most of us do, the huge pressures that's currently on policing. And also, in my mind, think I know what should be possible for police to actually do to resolve crime and disorder matters at a local level. And that's the kind of thing that I raise with them. I've occasionally raised issues beyond the Safer Neighbourhood team to either police senior management and sometimes the local MP, either directly as a private person or through the Safer Neighbourhood Board, if I do that as the PLG chair. I've raised such things as reduced police numbers on the Safer Neighbourhood team, use of the Safer Neighbourhood team away from their patch, and coordinated action to deal with a pattern of recurring crime that extends beyond East Sheen. And an example of this is the theft of catalytic converters, which I did raise some while ago. Current crime issues, I know the police are going to talk about this, but this is from my perspective. That affect East Sheen are high levels of cycle thefts, and that's from the street during the daytime and from sheds and garages overnight, thefts of catalytic converters, and the theft of keyless vehicles. Thankfully, a positive, burglary has reduced since lockdown, but it obviously remains a potential problem going forward. Nearly finished. Crimes committed at night time are an ongoing issue. Sometimes a third, maybe even up to nearly half of crimes in the area are committed at night. And for obvious reasons, that's because police are usually sound asleep in their homes. It's surprising what people can do in the street without waking anyone in their home up. And also lawful movements outside someone's home are very limited. But I think another factor is that street policing at night is reduced to, in the main, response only, which means we only get a police officer when we call for one, and sometimes that can be too late. And going on from that neighbourhood watch is so important, and also beyond neighbourhood watch, residents generally remaining alert to the possibility of crime, particularly at night. And at night, if anything suspicious is either seen or heard, if it's that suspicious, if there's a call made on the 999 system, the response team will come to this area, and you never know, they could prevent a crime, or if crime's already been committed, apprehend the bad people. That's my update.
Thank you. Wendy Culper, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, please. I'm talking on behalf of the Barnes Police Liaison Group and the Barnes and Mortlake Common group. We've had a triple whammy this year: COVID, police abstractions, the bridge, of course, and GDPR. All methods of community engagement are absolutely vital, through the police liaison groups and through the neighbourhood watch system. One of the problems has been that the membership records of both these types of organisation are held by the police, who have not had time or the resources to check this. Now we are hoping that we will get everybody back on course, work out exactly how many neighbourhood watch members we have, how many police liaison group members we have, and bring us back to where we were a year or so ago. There are many issues to discuss tonight. Among them, I think, is the fear of the other side of Barnes Bridge, but I hope that the news tonight from the councillors would mean that the lighting will be on the other side. Lovely. People will be delighted to hear that. People might bring up the fact that there are private security firms touting for trade here. That's causing concern in some parts of the borough. But most importantly, it's very, very important that the Safer Neighbourhood teams can communicate with the members. The Safer Neighbourhood Board have purchased 3 iPads so that each Safer Neighbourhood team can conduct Zoom meetings for the PLGs. Don't lose them, Chris, please. because they're not yours, that we're just lending them to you. The problem is that police computers will not allow Zoom meetings for security reasons. So this is the way we've got around that one. At the moment, we're doing paper meetings, which is basically a letter with a lot of information and crime figures to the police liaison group members, which is just to keep it going for the time being. But remember, you can contact your Safer Neighbourhood team anytime. Now, hopefully later on, we're going to publish the 3 email addresses for each of the Safer Neighbourhood teams for Sheen, Mortlake and for Barnes. But if anybody here wants to actually join a police liaison group, you can do that by writing via the Safer Neighbourhood Board's email, which again will be put up later, but it's richmond@cpp.snb@gmail.com, and we'll put you in touch with your local chair. The more people who are active in protecting their wards by belonging to Neighbourhood Watch and police liaison groups, the safer the wards are. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. I'm very keen, everyone, to get on to questions, but we'll just hear if Peter Burrows-Smith from the Safer Neighbourhood Board has an update. Then we'll hear from the police, and then we'll go to questions.
Thank you, Stephen. Very, very briefly, I'm with the Safer Neighbourhood Board, which is the pan-borough organisation. Okay, you've got 3 wards represented today, 3 PLGs across the borough. I'm not sure it's 17 or 18 wards. We bring everything together and address things at a pan-borough level. We're basically here just supporting and promoting community police relationships, which are very good, and help when a particular issue comes out. And I'll just mention something: private security companies, an issue which is always raised, and it might be raised today. I'm sure if Councillor Roberts is listening in, he might chip in, otherwise I will. That's all, thank you.
Thank you, Peter. And to the police, I think Inspector Rebecca Robinson, are you going to speak?
Hello, yes, hello everyone. So my name is Inspector Rebecca Robinson. I have responsibility for the Safer Neighbourhood teams across the whole of Richmond. So some of you on the call may remember the days we were lucky enough to have sort of 1 inspector per cluster. That unfortunately is no longer the case. So I have responsibility for all 80, and they are split into 5 clusters. The sergeant for this cluster is on the call. I'm going to invite to speak shortly is Chris Murphie. I'm going to keep this really, really brief because I basically want to use this as an opportunity for you guys to ask as many questions from the police as you would like, and for me to hear from you what your issues are. So just very, very briefly, sort of the crime picture across the whole of Richmond. So overall, along with the rest of the trends for London, we did see crime go down over the COVID period. As expected, we saw this rise again after COVID. However, it has kind of peaked off around July, August. Theft, stroke, handling offences are our favourite, our highest ranking crimes. Majority of which of those, however, do include harassment, with a small proportion of GBH. Also included in that is theft from motor vehicles. We're very much aware, and it was mentioned earlier, the issues around catalytic converters. So I have got some officers who are working on that in terms of the cross-borough picture and the movement of these offenders, but also in terms of working with the Safe Neighbourhood Board around issuing or getting ways in which that we can prevent these catalytic converters from being stolen. There's certain things that we can do with the cars that we're hoping to get some funding to be able to offer those out, and contact those people that have the relevant cars to assist with that. So we are aware that that is an issue. On the whole, crime is very much still down as it was this time last year. So year on year we are down. Richmond does remain one of the safest boroughs in London. However, as far as I'm concerned, that doesn't mean that you should expect any less of a service from us, the police. So I will quite happily and frequently sort of fight in resources meetings to ensure that we get those resources in and that our officers are protected. We do unfortunately only have 2 PCs and 1 PCSO now per ward. but protecting them as much as we can in terms of them being able to do their day job. But unfortunately, they are abstracted from us when there are incidents elsewhere in London. But yeah, just to sort of reassure you that I've got the best interests of Richmond at heart. COVID, I'll just touch on that really briefly because I'm sure that's going to be a concern to a lot of people. In terms of dealing with COVID offences, you've probably all heard, the government come out and say that we have various different powers, which we do, but the first line for us is always to engage with people. So if officers see someone not wearing a mask, they should be engaging with that person and asking them, because there are certain exemptions, and encouraging them to comply. We have specific cars on at the minute, to response cars to deal with COVID incidents, so any incident of concern with 6 people or more. However, as well, we've got to sort of manage our own resources internally in the police. Unfortunately, if one police officer gets it, that means 14 then a certain amount of people have to be isolating for 14 days as well. So we're working quite closely with our response teams and our tasking teams just to try and manage that and be a bit creative around using our special constables. But that's enough anyway. I've said I wasn't going to talk for long and then I've whittled on. So I shall pass very quickly over to Chris just to give you more of a local picture, and then we'll just, if we could open it up for questions, please. Thank you.
Chris Murphie, please share with us your comments.
Thank you, Father. Just to say thanks for the invite. I'm representing all 3 wards this evening. I would normally have a PC from each ward to speak to you about specific local issues. I think I know enough about the detail to address any concerns or questions you might have. I'm not going to witter on. The Governor has covered all the salient points that I was going to make. I would say quickly that we are aware of the rise in theft offences and the rise in overnight crimes on all 3 wards, and there are already measures in place to address that, including an uplift in patrols. Managed to snag some officers from the other parts of the BCU to do my work for me, which I'm always enjoying. Otherwise, please address your questions to us. Community engagement's the fun of this job. This is the best bit.
Thank you. So we're going to move on to questions. I think that's everyone who needed to update us, I think. Excellent. I should have said at the beginning where we will finish promptly at 8, because I'm sure, like me, you want to go and watch the Great British Bake Off. We've when I come to you, you'll be unmuted by the support team, and it would be lovely when you're asking a question, if you don't mind, putting your camera on if you haven't got it already, while you're asking the question. It's always nice to be able to see you while you're speaking, if you are able to do that. So, taking the questions initially in order, I can see that one of the first questions we had was a road safety question. Suzanne Gill, there are a number of other road safety questions, so this might be something that we spend a little bit of time on, and I'll ask others with related topics to come in. But Suzanne Gill, would you like to ask your question?
Yes, I would. Thank you very much.
Hello.
Is that all working? Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Suzanne. Go ahead.
Excellent. So I've got a question about safety on Lonsdale Road in Barnes, particularly cycle safety. Now that more people are cycling, I'm very concerned about the fact that the 20-mile-per-hour speed limit there isn't being enforced, that the road surface is of very poor quality, that although there are painted parking lanes, people park frequently on the double yellow lines, which makes the cycle path unusable. And I'd very much like to know what the Barnes ward councillors have done to support cycling, to support the government policy on gear change on Lonsdale Road.
Thank you, Dan. So that was addressed to the Barnes ward councillors. So would one of the councillors from there like to respond?
I'm happy to just go first. Thank you for that, Suzanne. Lonsdale is a very difficult road because of all those things that you've mentioned, and a very long straight road and the parking. We've been looking with officers before COVID hit. There were some measures that were being looked at just to increase the safety, particularly around where the islands are. I think we're all very much in favor of 20 mile per hour, and even though it's a difficult road for that, and bringing that down. And I know the council is now looking, especially with Hammersmith Bridge, as measures have been put in on Castle now, and there are different feelings about that, but that actually Lonsdale it would be a higher priority for that. And so there may be some things that come out soon on that. But I know it's certainly recognized that we need to improve the safety of cycling on Lonsdale, and we'll be pushing for that.
Thank you, Councillor Hodgins. Would others with related questions like to raise their virtual hand? While you are doing that, I'll just go to somebody who did have a related question. Charles, enforcement of speed limits. That was related to Suzanne's question. Charles, would you like to say what your question is about speed limits and their enforcement?
I can.
Charles Walford.
Yes, no, it's not my question though. So somebody else called Charles. So sorry, not me.
And who was that, Charles? We'll try and unmute another Charles.
No, sorry, this is Ellie. I don't think they think the other Charles may have left.
Oh, okay then.
Sorry.
I can see we had some other road questions. Could you raise your virtual hand? I'll go through the Ian Haddow.
Father Stephen?
Yes.
I'm here saying I'm here from Charles to everyone.
Thank you.
Page.
It may be that he's muted. It may be that he's muted.
There we are. I think I see Charles, you in the hat. There we are.
Yes. Sorry, I couldn't, you wouldn't, yeah, you were trying to talk to someone else and I couldn't unmute myself, but
apologies.
I'm here.
So yours was a speed enforcement question as well. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I just think it's quite telling that, you know, of all the kind of conversations at the beginning or the talks at the beginning, the thing that the law that's broken most of all is speeding, you know, vehicle speeding. It's a constant thing. I actually also live on Lonsdale Road, so I've been trying to get Lonsdale Road sorted out ever since I moved there 13 years ago in some way, and council and cycling infrastructure, etc. But you know, I also put in a question earlier by email about can we have police back on bicycles, because it is the best way to get around. You can hear what's going on, you can talk to people, and also it might then raise the issue of cycle safety and speeding traffic. I mean, I'm just sitting by Barnes Pond, and there's this area where the cars turn in, you know, and speeding past the market, etc. It's really, really dangerous. And with more people, more children cycling to school, which I see every morning from where I live, and cars pushing up behind them, trying to overtake, you know, aggressively, not overtly aggressively, but they're just sort of used to traveling at stronger speeds. So we had 20 miles an hour, which is brilliant, and it had an impact initially, but there's a significant minority of people who ignore it, and there doesn't seem to be any enforcement. And when I've spoken to police, which is very difficult to do in the street, you hardly ever see any police. When I do, they've been quite rude to me, as if it's not, they told me it wasn't their responsibility and it was the council's responsibility. So I think it's a critical matter, critical safety matter. In Oslo, Helsinki, they say they've got 0 pedestrian cycle road casualties from 2019, which is a tremendous achievement. And speeding and design of streets and driver training are the 3 main points that help them achieve that.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone on the panel like to respond to Charles's points?
I'm happy to. Hello.
Councillor Brandreth, hello, thank you. Go ahead.
I'm sure other people will want to come in here, and perhaps some of our police team might be able to comment. Just specifically in relation to Lonsdale Road, I mean, I completely agree that there are some real issues with speeding down Lonsdale Road. Obviously, the closure of Hammersmith Bridge has changed the nature of the traffic, but I totally understand your desire of people who live there to want to see measures that would help to manage that speed. It's something that I've raised before, and I'm happy to keep raising on all your behalf. There are 3 schools on the road and a nursery, and I really couldn't think of a road that needs to have the speed looked at more. You know, the number of young children there, it's really important. One of the things that has happened is that there have been some yellow lines put on a section of Lonsdale Road. I know it hasn't made a huge difference, but for those using the cycle lane, I think that has made it slightly easier not to have to always weave around the parked cars. But certainly I think it is being looked at whether an improvement to the cycle lane can be made there. Obviously, we have to understand that not everybody can cycle, but those who can and want to, I think we should encourage it and make it as easy as possible for those individuals. The thing that I wanted to raise, which you might already be aware of, and perhaps some others can give more details on, are the Community Road Watch scheme. It's something that I've been out with police before doing, and it's where you get to use a kind of speed gun and to measure the speeds of traffic in your community. And actually there are letters that are sent out on the basis of that if people are speeding. I know it isn't the same as having an actual speed camera, but I think it does make people aware of the speeds they're traveling, and I would certainly encourage people to join in with that scheme, because all of us in the community can be part of making a difference.
Thank you. Councillor Rita Palmer.
Thank you. In response to Charles's comments about aggressive driving, if you want to, this is for the benefit of all the police that are here tonight, if you want to experience aggressive driving, come from Chalkers Corner all the way down the High Street in Barnes, and then you turn off to go by the pond down Station Road. It really is the most dangerously aggressive driving you'll ever see. And that, as regards the 20 miles per hour, there's no adherence to that from most of the drivers. It's people who are coming into Barnes High Street to get home down south. And it's appalling. I wish the police, somebody could go down there and just patrol it a couple of nights, peak time, sort of 4 to 6, something like that.
Thank you. Well, in fact, PS Chris Murphie would like to say something. We'll spend a little bit longer on traffic just because there have been a few questions on it, but quite a few questions on it. Then we'll maybe think about moving on. PS Chris Murphie, would you like to say something?
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you, Father. First off, there is no way that policing would be ignoring speeding issues. The 20-mile-an-hour speed limit is an exceptionally good idea, keeps everybody safe. The exception to this would be for emergency response vehicles, and actually a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit does make our jobs easier because the traffic is slower moving, therefore we can maneuver around a bit more easily. In response to Charles's comment about the officers being rude, I really genuinely hope that wasn't any of my team, because they'll answer to me for that. I would imagine that they were referring to the application or instalment of new speeding cameras, and there is an infrastructure in place for that already, which unfortunately I don't get an awful lot of say over. I would like to see a speed camera on Lonsdale. If there's anyone who's willing to stick that application in on behalf of the council, I'll put my name to it. I also think that there's other locations on all 3 wards and in fact across Richmond that could benefit. Secondly, on the point of seeing police patrolling on bikes, the simple fact is, as the governor quite rightly said, at most I have on these 3 wards 9 members of staff, 6 officers, 3 PCSOs, and I don't always have that, unfortunately, because of the way staffing tends to be. They are out and about every day. They use a mixture of vehicles and bikes as suits their intended target and intended impact. I can spread them as thin as everyone would like. There is unfortunately a limited number of them. So we attend the priority locations. With regards to the enforcement of speeding, community speed watch is a cracking idea, and it's something that we've looked at. In terms of identifying a location, I've looked at the statistics for injury accidents at the moment, the wards, all 3 wards actually, are relatively low. That does not take away from the point made by Councillor Palmer. I have had the misfortune to have to bang drivers' heads together where they're getting angry with each other at Clifford, on the Upper Richmond Road, and also towards the sort of Putney end of Mortlake. There's very little I can do to enforce that in terms of the number of PCs I've got. We do deal with what we come across. We obviously will look at the speed watch, and we'll support the council with the deployment of cameras where that's deemed appropriate and meets the criteria. And I would be at pains to point out that my officers, the main part of their job is to be out and about patrolling, not always visible. We do a lot of plainclothes work as well, because some of the nature of the crimes that we want to engage with, plainclothes is a distinct advantage there. But you will see police officers out every day. The contact details for all 3 wards, and I believe for me, are going to be attached at the end of this meeting. So please get in touch with your concerns. I can't do my job effectively if I don't know what's going on. I think that's all I wanted to say on that one. Did I miss anyone's point, Father?
No, I think you covered most of them. I'll just go to Councillor Avon, and then we'll go back to you, residents. Councillor Avon, please go ahead.
Thanks, Father Stephen. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just wanted to touch upon a matter which Councillor Curran raised earlier in terms of the low traffic neighbourhood scheme. We're waiting for the yay or nay from TfL for that. And I just wanted to make the police aware of particularly dangerous behaviour from cars on older roads. I mean, that whole area, all those roads up there and North Walpole Way have become particularly busy. Hence the request for an LTN since the close of Hammersmith Bridge, and it's an absolute nightmare. But I've received quite a few reports from residents on older roads where cars are mounting pavements, where there's near misses, and that is a police matter which I know they, in terms of resources, they can't do everything, but I just wanted to draw it, that road in particular, to the attention of officers of whether they could have a look at older road at particular peak periods, obviously in the morning, early evening, because cars are mounting pavements and putting residents' lives in danger, quite frankly. So I would bring that to officers' attention. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Avon.
Can I just step in, Father Stephen, just quickly, and on the back of that, and say South Walpole Way. I know there was a question in the chat,
yes,
but that was going towards White Hart Lane, which I support what the resident was saying there, but also talking about the East Sheen end of South Walpole. Now that we have double yellow lines coming from the Barnes Hospital site, people are mounting the pavement. It is so narrow, that pavement, and there is speeding going on, and I know residents are concerned.
I can see that there are lots of questions of people who want to talk about traffic. I just wonder whether, just for the moment, we should move on to a different topic to be fair to others. And if we have time, we'll come back to some of these questions, if that's okay. There's a number of questions about increases in crime in certain areas, so it'd be really good just to touch on that topic. So the first one of those I can see was from Judy Gowing. So Judy, you have a question about crime around Westmoreland Road.
Thanks, Stephen. I'm the coordinator of Westmoreland Road, and during COVID we set up a WhatsApp group. So we've obviously heard more about what's going on in the street, but there does seem to have been an awful lot of catalytic converters stolen, 2 bikes stolen, various thefts from cars. My worry is, and I know other people have spoken about this as obviously going on in other places, that residents are now talking about getting a security firm in, because they're not even bothering to report some of these things to the police, because they're too busy, they're doing off other things. I mean, as Chris said, he's only got 2 policies for this ward. I worry about that, the fact that people are not trusting the police, who are then just thinking, oh, well, nothing will happen if I do report it, what's the point? I mean, that's my main point, and I'd love more information. Somebody mentioned that there was information about there was more security on the paths around the bridges. If someone could talk a bit more about that. Is it the towpaths or quite where that was? I didn't. That's a separate issue though.
Okay,
I'm happy to give some details on that if you'd like.
Okay, thank you. Maybe we'll just go to the first point first, if that's all right, and then we'll come to you, Councillor Cambridge. Chris Murphie, do you want to respond to the point about potential increases in crime and also private security firms?
Yeah, firstly, in terms of increases in crime, we are suffering by comparison with lockdown months now. So it will appear, if you're looking at crime figures on Home Office website, Met website, wherever you're going, that we've experienced a spike. I'm at pains to point out that I would love to bring a zero crime figure across all 3 wards, although that would mean I was instantly unemployed. The reality is that the crime levels have gone back to roughly where they are in previous years. That's not to say that's a good thing. There is a lift in both the acquisitive crime, so theft, burglary, theft of pedal cycles particularly, and I am aware of all that. I'm aware of Judy's specific concerns, and thank you, Judy, for bringing those to the attention of my team. And we have adjusted our patrols accordingly. Now, I know that people are going to say we don't ever see police, and do you know what? I get that, because I don't ever see police where I live either. The likelihood of you seeing an officer at a particular time, on a particular day when they're patrolling it, is quite slim. However, please be reassured that we are listening to those concerns. We are addressing our patrols towards those areas and looking at other sort of non-deployment options, things like rapid deployment camera, applications which go through the community safety team, and also information drops for particular areas and particular vehicle owners. It's been quite successful in East Sheen on that front. I'm not going to say that we've got all the answers. So if people have an idea, people have something that they think we haven't tried, or they're not seeing us in a particular area, then again, please contact the team. The email address will be at the end. Just
are the patrols? Sorry, Chris. Are the patrols on foot or in the car, or how?
A combination: foot, car, bicycle, and they're every day.
Thank you.
And I would add as well, sort of depending on the crime, it might be better for us to put people out in plain clothes, depending on what we're dealing with. But obviously, then when we do that, we kind of lose that visibility. But as Chris said, you know, if we don't know about it, we can't deal with it. And sometimes it's part of us building intel into like a bigger picture, so we can put specific operations together. So please do always report this into the police. It's just so important it comes into us. Quite often, sometimes the officers will look on next door and see things, but it actually hasn't been reported into the police. It's gone on next door, and then it's become something that's a lot harder for us to manage, and causing a lot more sort of scare in the community. So please do continue to report it into us.
But if people don't get any response when they've reported something, then they think there's no point.
Yeah,
reporting.
no, I understand that, but in that case, you know, we have put on the mailboxes. I mean, you will always get a response from those mailboxes. You know, that goes directly through to your local neighbourhood team. So if you are having any issues, please put it into them. Yeah.
If I could,
one part of Judy's question was about the private security firms that have been marketing barns, and we've had a few of those. This seems like an apt moment, maybe just to raise that. If police, you'd like to.
I'm happy to, unless the boss wants to step in on this one. I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, I'll step in. So obviously, so these firms are not sort of endorsed by police. We would ask if residents are, you know, applying for these services, that they're sure of what it is that they're getting and what it is that they're paying for, and they're getting sort of that service. Any service that they're applying for is legal, and that they really look into what it is that they're getting. But obviously, the Met as a whole does not endorse any private security firms. That's sort of the official corporate line on that, really.
Are there others who had questions about increases of crime who would like whose questions they feel that haven't been answered? I can see we had a few other people, Sami Mansour, had a question. Has your question been answered, Sammy?
No, not as I wanted. I mean, to get more explanation from the police. Thank you. First, thank you, Father Stephen, for this gathering. Just a quick thing, because I've been experiencing all those kind of crime. My car has been stolen, BMW. 3 bicycles has been stolen, and every time. And unfortunately, I'm saying that feeling unsafe. I live in East Sheen, and I have CCTV outside. I chase the police to give them the CCTV, and I have to escalate by emails and chasing them. And at the end, I know the answer before doing anything, which is the case is closed, no efficient evidence. So I have all those letters here. So it's becoming really frustrated to the extent that we are here in East Sheen. We live in Upper Richmond, Richmond Park Road. We have a group and we are communicating with each other to see how can we secure, to feel safe in our home. Yes, we are living with the COVID-19, we're staying at home. Thank God till this moment, nobody entered inside. However, what's going outside is unacceptable. And the problem is, it is very clear that because the police is not there and is not doing, they can see that they're doing something against the crime. The crime has been increased and we see them doing it again and again. And they don't come, they come in front of the CCTV. I have their footage, and the footage was, we helping the police. I went to Sam's Chicken. We have more videos of the people that they came, and we've seen them on the CCTV, and nothing is happening.
Sammy, Marcel, there's 2 people who raised their hands to answer your question or on this subject: Peter Burrows-Smith, then Chris Murphie, and then Councillor Cambridge. So maybe Peter Burrows-Smith first.
Well, thank you, Father Stephen. So I was first going to go back to comment on the on private security guards. Just to say that the council issued a statement, a clear statement, a few days ago, basically saying they're warning residents to be careful about signing up to private security companies, and to confirm that neither the council nor the police nor the Safer Neighbourhood Board endorse these companies in any way. So there's a clear statement a few days ago on the council website about that. I just wanted to, Rebecca might...
Yeah, but Peter, if we don't feel safe and if we see that the police is not around, so what can we do? Do we do it ourselves?
Yeah.
So.
Well, as we sort of stated, that is up to residents who you want to employ. But I would ask you again to just sort of be mindful of the fact. I'm sure you're all aware of the incident that happened in Richmond, whereby a private security member was actually arrested. And what that did is it actually took 5 police officers off the street, because unfortunately that is what it takes sometimes to arrest someone and to do the paperwork and take the statements. So what that actually did is kind of strip us back a bit more. We can't tell you who you can and can't employ, but yeah, just be mindful that any company that you are handing your money over to is legitimate. That's all that we'd ask.
Absolutely, I agree with you, Inspector Rebecca, that we don't want that. And the reason we are talking tonight, I guess, because we want the police to tell us at least what are the plans, how we're going to feel safe again.
Yeah,
I think I'm probably best placed to answer that one.
Thank you. Police Sergeant Chris Murphie, would you like to go ahead?
Thank you, Father. Sorry to talk over you. Sammy, regarding your concerns about crime reporting, obviously it's extremely frustrating when you don't get an answer to information you provided. I'm happy to look at those. If you want to contact me via the East Sheen mailbox, I'm happy to look at what's happened with your cases and why that hasn't been followed up. In terms of the CCTV, the crime recording system isn't perfect. I won't say that the Met knows the answers to all the questions that we are posed by local residents. My greatest frustration as a local ward sergeant is that quite often things are closed before I've even got to look at them. In that case, they don't go away, they don't get deleted. I go back in, take the available evidence and actually run with it. And we've had some success with that in terms of prosecutions for theft, prosecutions for burglary, and prosecutions for antisocial behaviour, which is ongoing. So it's not Sammy, it's never a closed question, as it were. It's never the end of the matter. If someone writes to you and says your crime report has been filed away or put away for now, if more evidence comes to light, i.e. you've got CCTV from yourself or Sam's Chicken or another local resident, that can be re-examined. And I would invite you, please, to send those details on to the East Sheen ward mailbox, where me and my team can have a look at those, please.
Can you put that on the chat? Is it that an email or what?
I'll leave that to Richmond Council, but yes, that will be available at the end of the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I think Councillor Cambridge wanted to say something, and if you wanted to this topic and also go on to the one about the, I think it was the other side of the Thames as well. I think you had something to say about that, or am I mistaking? Go ahead.
No, I know. Yes, I know what you meant. First of all, just to Sammy, I think Sergeant Murphy's kind of taken that on. I will put my email, my council email, in the chat. Sammy, I'm more than happy to come to Richmond Park Road. I really sympathise with you. The fact that you've had a vehicle stolen, you're reporting that, and bicycles, you feel you've got footage and nothing's being done. I'm glad that Sergeant Murphy's going to re-look at that, but I'd love to come along and chat to you if that's appropriate, and I'll put my email in the chat. The second thing, Father Stephen, was Councillor Brandreth has very kindly actually put details of in the chat of the council towpath press release, and that was just to say that between 3 and 7 on weekdays from Hammersmith Bridge to the borders, which is Beverley Brook, Putney borders, there will be 4 on bicycle wardens. They'll be very distinguishable. They'll be wearing high vis. They'll have been checked, obviously they're security checked, but they'll be there, and there's going to be lighting as well. So that was it really, but that's in the chat as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I want to make sure we keep coming back to residents as well as the panel. So I'll just, there was a related question about safety on the north bank of the Thames, if that hasn't already been answered. It says Anne Willard Sullivan. Is your question still needing answering? We'll just unmute you. I think that's just going to happen. One moment. There we are. Can we hear you, Anne?
Can you hear me? That's the question.
Hello, welcome. Hello.
Hello. Thank you very much for taking the question. So we know that there'll be guards and low lighting between Hammersmith Bridge and Beverley Brook heading toward Putney, but a lot of people actually travel over to Barnes Bridge, cross over Barnes Bridge, and then have got to work their way on the north bank through Chiswick and Hounslow. And that has always been a really dark area. So I don't know what is being done to encourage Hounslow Borough to do something to keep the kids safe.
Thank you. Panel, who would like to respond to that? Wendy Curl-Pope, I think you saw your hand first. So if you'd like to go first.
Wendy,
we have been asking certainly the borough commander, Sarah Only, the MP, to lobby on behalf of us to the other side to put in lighting and further protection for people crossing the bridge. As it gets darker earlier, the dangers get more and more, and the perceived dangers get more and more. So far, unless any of the councillors here know any differently, we've hit a brick wall, but we keep on lobbying.
We'll go to two councillors who wish to respond. I think Councillor Hodgins and then Councillor Brandreth. So if you
just very quickly, thank you for that. And Wendy, I think the problem here is we get into these administrative boundaries, and the issue is going to be Hounslow will say, well, we completely sympathize, but it's not our residents. It's the Richmond residents. And so I think we as councillors need to keep pressing not only them, but our own council. I think the only way it's going to happen is if we contribute to that. Otherwise, we'll just continue to lobby and nothing will happen. And so I agree. My daughter goes along that path as well. So I know the importance of it, and we've got to find a way to make it happen.
There are plenty of kids that go to school from the North Bank, crossing over to as we say, we have 4 schools along Lonsdale Road, plenty that will be coming from Chiswick, from Hounslow, over into.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's not, anyway, I'm just saying it's that is the problem, and everybody will sympathize. But I think the only way, from what I can see, is I'm worried about just continuing to lobby and then nothing happens. And we've got to help make that happen for our residents.
Councillor Brown,
even getting,
sorry, Anne Willard Sullivan, do you want to?
Well, just getting to Barnesbridge, it's great that the towpath from Hammersmith toward Putney has guards, but we've just talked about Lonsdale Road, and if kids are encouraged to take the well-lit streets in Barnes, they're going to take the shortest path. They'll probably go down Lonsdale Road. Or they'll take the towpath between Hammersmith Bridge and Barnesbridge, and that's very dark. Wouldn't hurt to have some guards there.
I agree. We'll take that back. Sorry, Julia.
Councillor Cambridge and Councillor Brandreth, sorry. Did you have to something to add on?
I didn't. I mean, Paul Councillor Hodgins has already, I think, made the point very well. I just wanted to say that I completely agree. I think it's a really important issue, especially the possibility of some low-level lighting on the Chiswick side of Barnes Bridge. I submitted a written question to the last council meeting about it, and if I can find the answer whilst I'm still on this Zoom, I will post the answer that I received from our lead on transport in the chat. But we have to keep putting on the pressure on this. It's really important. The nights are drawing in, and safety should be one of the top issues that we're considering for children and other people who are having to cross over Barnes Bridge.
Thank you. Councillor Cambridge.
Yeah, I was just, I agree with Councillor Brandreth and echo what Councillor Hodges was saying too. I've put, just a bit sneakily, but I've just texted the transport lead and put him on the spot and asked him about Hounslow. He said to me, we've asked and officers are engaging, but I can't command another local authority to do something. A bit on the same lines as Councillor Hodges was saying, as an experienced councillor. We hope that our measures might show what's possible, but we can keep on. I will keep on to him and the MP, most definitely.
Thank you. I'm just looking at other topics we may wish to go on to in the chat. We've covered a number of topics. People, please raise, residents, please raise your hands if there's a particular question you'd like to ask.
Father Stephen, there was there was one I saw with regards to development, and I think someone said not with Hammersmith Bridge closed, which I could just comment on from a planning point of view. I know that it is obviously very understandable that people are highly concerned about the development, not only at Mortlake Brewery, but also at Barnes Hospital site and at, the home base site, which is sort of all kind of like a triangle of development. And there's a lot of concern with Hammersmith Bridge. The issue with planning is that Hammersmith Bridge, the closure of Hammersmith Bridge will be seen as temporary. So although some consideration has to be taken into it, there won't be taken into account, it wouldn't be seen as an issue per se to refuse any planning application, particularly on the bigger sites where there is a length of time that the building would be finished, and by that time there would be an assumption that Hammersmith Bridge would be open. So I just wanted to sort of let people know that, because I've had quite a few emails from residents which are understandably concerned about that, but it isn't a reason only to refuse planning permission.
Thank you. It's Ian Haddow who has raised that question. Okay. So if we could unmute Ian Haddow.
See if he wants.
And Ian can tell us if that has answered his question, or if he would like to say more about that. Ian.
Well, it has to an extent, because a friend of mine who used to be on the Residents Association committee, she was one of the people on there, and she used to keep me updated. The unfortunate thing about that is the word is used to, because she unfortunately moves from her house tomorrow to Wandsworth, so I'm not going to be updated anymore. But I understand that the last time I heard was that they were going to, the Mayor of London wanted to increase the number of properties on the site from 850 to 1,200. And to me, I personally don't think that's tenable.
Yeah.
Have you got any viewpoints on that, Councillor Connor?
I have. The last application was actually, that's correct, it was around 800 units, and I think there was assisted living, which was for about 50 units. That's now been removed, and the Mayor of London, the application the Mayor is considering until recently was for around 1,200 units, although I understand that there's another application that's gone in which is even more density. Obviously the local authority approved the previous planning application, but the Mayor called it in and has increased the density, and everyone, I think every resident I know, has been objecting. So it is actually in the Mayor of London's hands whether or not that plan is approved. And I believe it's till the 1st of October we can object. And then there's I believe it's early November that it's going to be tabled for a decision. So you can obviously email up to that time with your objections. If you contact the Mortlake Brewery Community Group, and I can certainly share their information with officers after this, so that their details are shared in the notes out to everyone, then they will be sharing all the information.
Well, I'm also in contact with Sarah Olney about it, but her first priority is doing something about Hammersmith Bridge, which I can understand, because if you've got Hammersmith Bridge up and running, then there wouldn't be quite such a congestion around the Mortlake Green area, which there obviously will be when the development goes ahead. And that is going to take approximately, I would think, about 12 months to do. At the moment, the site is dormant. It's open to vandalism. People could get in there and do all sorts of things.
The estimated build for the site that came to planning committee of about 800 units was, I think, 2 to 3 years before it would be completely finished. So, but I think the other consideration is obviously there's a very large site on the old home base, or it's home base, it's still there, site that was refused at the local planning committee, and then has been called in and again has been approved on a much denser scale at the home base site. So you're looking at sort of two big sites, hugely dense, and I'm sure Councillor Marcel or Councillor Joyce or Councillor Cambridge can speak a bit more about that, but two dense sites at either end of the sort of short period of the A316 with, as you say, no functioning Hammersmith Bridge.
I don't want home base site to go, because where would I go for my next home base? Sunbury?
No,
you know, I do know there's one there, but I mean, no, that's being a bit, facetious about it. But I don't want what is really an industrial area go to be residents. I know Sadiq Khan is under pressure to get more property built in London. The more people come to London year in, year out, so more properties have to be built, etc., etc. And the spaces are becoming rarer. Soon we're going to fill up.
Just a reminder that we should refocus ourselves on community safety rather than planning issues per se. I'll just go, I think Susie Webb, your question, is it related on a related topic? You're live, Susie. Oh no, we can't hear you. We'll just get you unmuted. Just a moment.
Unmute.
There we are. Hello, hello.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Excellent, we can.
Yes. Yes. Nearly a month and a half, 2 months ago, two of the neighbours of mine and myself contacted the local police because we have cars, 2 or 3 normally, coming early evening, very expensive looking cars, and youngsters arrive on their scooters and bicycles, and some negotiations go on at the windows of the cars, obviously drug dealing. We reported it to the police. We took photographs of the cars with the number plates and gave them the approximate time. About a week later, a policeman did telephone me and said they were too busy to deal with it then, but they'd get back to me in the next couple of weeks. No one has been in contact with us, and there has been ongoing drug dealing. The only time we actually see the police in this road is during the day. Usually they come in a car, windows closed, it's a cul-de-sac, they go to the end, turn round and drive out again. You can't see or hear anything in a car, but the drug dealing takes place in the evening, usually between 7 and 8:30, it varies. It happened again tonight, but of course there are no police here, and we have reported it. We have got registration numbers and photographs. Why aren't the police taking an interest? I thought it was illegal.
Thank you, Susie. Turn to our police representatives. Chris Murphie.
Yeah, thank you, Father. Sorry, I'm just going to take my hand down again. Ooh, so yes, well, I was aware of the issue. In terms of the vehicles that were spotted and all that sort of thing, they were researched in full. The patrols were undertaken. I'm slightly frustrated that you weren't given as much contact as I would like, and that you feel that you've been ignored, because I can promise you that's not the case. In terms of, you know, it is a local priority. It is something that we pay a lot of attention to. It's an area we are in a lot. So to find that it's that you've not had as much contact with the local team as you would like is a personal frustration. I will seek to remedy that. However, please keep the information coming to us, because if that dries up, then we really can't deal with it at all. I can assure you at the moment, if it's been looked at in detail to the point where we can't progress it any further, i.e. we need to find these people. I think I'm right in saying that the last registration numbers we were provided with turned out to be on cloned plates, or there's a reason why the inquiries couldn't progress any further. Some of it involving personal information, which I can't really give over this call. I'm frustrated on your behalf. I will speak with my team tomorrow regarding what information they've had and why they haven't come back to you. Please mark any emails for my attention, and I'll come back to you on it.
Susie, does that, are you happy with that question? Does that answer that? Does that respond to your question?
Well, it is a response, but I would prefer to actually see the police here. I have seen them back again, not the police, the drug dealers, the young chaps on their electric scooters and bicycles. And actually they hang around smoking pot while they're waiting. The smell is awful. How our police can say that they've investigated it and still haven't picked up on the things that my neighbours and we're very busy, but we're disturbed by it. Well, I don't know when they come, but I am disappointed that the police didn't get back to us. It's not just me, it's my block, and any one of us will be very relieved and grateful to speak to a police officer. Thank you.
Thank you.
We will look into, myself and Chris will look into that after this call. I think that's something we probably need to go a bit deeper into.
Thank you. It shows the value of this kind of forum to raise these things. Thank you. I can see there was a question from Susan Weaver on cycling and e-scooters and enforcement. Susan, are you still there? And would you like to ask your question? Hello, we can hear you.
Hello. Yes, it's the cycling and e-scooters and speeding on the pavement, not just riding on the pavement, but you've actually been engaging with the council about this over and over and over again for months. It's got so bad. I live down the Mortlake end of Sheen Lane, and it's narrow, as Councillor Cambridge knows. But I don't see why, obviously police can't be everywhere all the time. Can the council not paint a roundel on the pavement saying no cycling in the same way as the 20-mile-an-hour signs that are everywhere, every now and then on the pavement. And it might be more of an instruction for people to get off the pavement. That's all I have to say about that.
Thank you. Who would like to respond to that on the panel? Councillor Cambridge.
Hi, good evening, Susan. Me and Susan live within a few buildings of each other. So what happens on Sheen Lane, we're both on the spot and affected by. And I think you've written to me about this, haven't you?
Yeah.
I don't know what the council officers would think of this idea, but I think we need to find out. But it is a problem, and you're not the only person who's written about this. And I just think, I remember back, and I absolutely am ashamed to say this, but I was stopped by the police as a youngster outside Adrian Hall Garden Centre, where I had gone on sneakily, just gone onto the side of the pavement, and they stopped me quite rightly. And obviously that involves a police presence, and we can't always have that, but it is an offence. And I'm maybe Sergeant Murphy will correct me, but I think you can only ride on the pavement if you're under 12 years of age. Is that correct?
We're making allowance for use on the pavement because, frankly, it's safer for them to be on the pavement than on the road. However, it is all illegal as according to the Highways Act 18 something or other, slightly before my service. However, the enforcement of this is something that we will deal with. It's, you know, so you see someone cycling on the pavement, you see someone riding an e-scooter on the pavement, they are engaged with. They are given the, at the very least from me, because I don't believe in paperwork, I believe in the flea in the ear. They'll be told what they should be doing and no uncertain terms with probably some choice language thrown into it. I
got a warning for mine.
Well, indeed, that's entirely appropriate for the level of offence you're talking about. However, again, it comes down to which particular priority we choose to enforce. In terms of cycling on the pavement, it is a relatively, and I say relative, a low-level issue that doesn't involve a lot of injury. So in terms of risk assessing it, I can't put that at the top of my priority list. I can just say when we see it, we will absolutely deal with it, and I would welcome more signage.
I was making light of it then, but I mean, this was many years ago and it was a few inches on a pavement, but I totally agree with Susan Weaver about this, and it is a menace. It really is, particularly to people who aren't confident, maybe, you know, on a pavement to suddenly be cut up by a cyclist. Yeah.
There are two councillors who I can see want to say something on this, and then we are at 8 o'clock, so we should probably come to an end. So I'll ask you councillors to be brief, and then we'll all go and watch the Great British Bake Off, if that doesn't count as an advert. Other programmes are available, as they used to say. Councillor Hodgins and then Councillor Palmer, and then we will conclude. Okay,
thank you, Father Stephen. So just very quickly, first of all, I have to declare an interest because I've got a business that does rental e-scooters all outside of London, but I am kind of in the area. But I do think because we've talked about this before, I just wanted to comment on the painting on the pavement, which I absolutely agree with. And so we'll come back. We'll put it again to the council. I don't know why we haven't been able to be successful in this, and it goes back a few years, even back to our administration. One of the things that we did for dog poo was in problem areas we put temporary paint down with stencils, and it notified people that in that area is a problem. And I think we should look at that for riding on pavements as well, because I just think the awareness is not high enough. So it doesn't have to be permanent, but where we can react to problem areas, and so we'll take that back. I think that could work. Thank you.
That's a clever way of doing it, isn't it? A temporary sign that then comes off. Yeah. Councillor Palmer, and then we'll wrap up for the evening.
Thank you, Father Stephen. For the attention of Chris Murphie, I would, on the back of what we've been discussing, riding bicycles on the pavement and e-scooters, there's an increasing danger spot at the end of Castle now, where you turn right into Church Road in Barnes. What's happening is the cyclists and the e-scooters, they're not, and it's always young men, fit, young, healthy men, as they can't wait at the traffic light, so they're circumventing it and cutting up onto the pavement into Church Road. when they get to Byfield Gardens, they do go into the road. I've observed so much of it, and it's increasing. Because it's simply because they don't want to wait for the lights to go green.
Thank you, Councillor Pump. So something for maybe the police to note there. We should come to an end because we said we'd be prompt at 8 o'clock, and it's always good to be on time. Thank you so much for coming, everyone, this evening. One question I was asked directly was, what were the pictures behind me on the wall? So one is Jerusalem, one is the Isle of Arran, where I like to go on holiday. So that's our final, I answer that final question for the evening. But once again, thank you to our panel. Thank you to all the local residents who have attended and asked their questions this evening. A reminder that everything they've recorded this evening, and it will appear on the website, so you'll be able to review it, and also you will be emailed notes from this evening's meeting, so you'll be able to see, remind yourself what has been said. So once again,
and thanks to you, Father Stephen, as well, for doing
a pleasure, a great honor to host this evening. Thank you, and
Thanks,
good night. Everybody. Have a wonderful evening. Good night.
Thank you.
And a safe evening. Bye-bye.